building sensible sedans accidentally created a mythical supercar killer? Well, you are in exactly the right place. To really get this, we gotta start right at the climax. Picture it. It's 2001. The very first Fast and Furious movie hits theaters, and boom, this bright orange MK4 Supra pulls up next to a Ferrari. In that one scene, this car didn't just embarrass Dom in a drag race, it literally became an instant pop culture icon. From that exact moment on, the Supra wasn't just a car anymore. It was a street missile, a completely customizable canvas that you could tune down to its very molecules. It proved to the whole world that Japanese cars weren't just boring Corollas, they represented this massive, vibrant universe of tuning and drag racing. But to understand how it reached that spectacular peak, we really gotta rewind.
Section 1. The Movie Star.
Section 2. Under Celica's Shadow. So, flashing back to its kind of weird, humble beginnings in the 1970s, the Supra didn't just pop into existence as a standalone legend. For a really long time, it was stuck living entirely in the shadow of a totally different car. Think back to 1964. The Ford Mustang launches the pony car era, right? Affordable, great-looking cars packing decent power. Everyone was chasing that trend. Toyota's response in 1970 was the Celica, a neat little rear-wheel drive compact. But by 1978, they needed something with a bit more punch, so they birthed a new model from that Celica family and called it the Celica XX. Now, North America absolutely hated that name. They thought it sounded way more like a secret government project than a car. So Toyota pivoted and changed it for them to the Celica Supra. Visually, though, the original Supra was basically just a Celica with the hood literally stretched out. And why'd they do that? Literally just to cram 2 extra cylinders in there. They dropped in this massive inline-6 engine with roots going all the way back to the legendary 1960s 2000 GT. And the result, a super reliable, durable, low-maintenance car. Basically the exact kind of car your dad would absolutely love. But from actual car enthusiasts, it was desperately lacking any true sports appeal. So here's the crucial point. How did Toyota actually fix that? Well, they pulled off this absolute genius crossover with the British automaker Lotus. You see, in the 70s, Lotus made incredibly agile sports cars. But British cars back then weren't exactly famous for their reliability. Like, you basically needed a mechanic on speed dial. So they struck a deal. Toyota handed over highly reliable Japanese parts for the Lotus XL, and in return, Lotus lent their expertise to give the Supra some authentic, raw sports car handling. It was this fascinating fusion of bulletproof engineering and true driving excitement.
Section 3. Evolution and Independence.
Moving right into the 1980s, the car really starts to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up. In 1981, Toyota updated the original A4 model to the A5. It was kind of like your standard smartphone upgrade today, just the next logical step. But American journalists, they could not have cared less about the A5 factory name. They completely ignored it and casually dubbed it the Mark II themselves. Toyota never actually officially used that name back then, but the public ran with it instantly, and boom, the legacy of the Mark generations was born entirely by accident. By 1986, the Supra finally breaks up with the Celica. It goes independent as the A7 or the Mark III. It's got its own life. But there was a massive problem on paper. It gained 227 kilograms. That's about 500 pounds of extra weight. Sure, it had a little more power, but driving it felt exactly like an elite athlete trying to run a sprint while wearing a backpack completely full of bricks. It just couldn't shine.
So, in 1987, someone at Toyota realized they needed to fix this weight issue with just pure, raw power. They slap a turbo on it, creating the 7M GTE engine, pushing around 220 horsepower, which, by the way, was massive for the time. Oh, and they also tacked on this incredible, futuristic, Star Wars-looking rear spoiler. Suddenly, the heavy Mark III is this highly desirable powerhouse. Fast forward to 1992, and they perfect it even further by introducing the legendary 1JZ engine, built specifically for sports cars. Honestly, at that point, you'd think it couldn't possibly get any better.
Section 4. The MK4 Legend.
But spoiler alert, it did get better. This brings us to 1993, the era where the Supra reached absolute, undisputed perfection. Toyota unveils the A8, universally known to us as the MK4. They completely trashed that boxy 80s look, delivering this unforgettable, heavily aerodynamic, curvy body that honestly looked like it was speeding even when parked. But the real engineering flex, they successfully shaved off 90 kilograms of weight compared to the previous generation. It was stunning, it was lighter, and man, was it significantly faster.
Now, focus on this astonishing number for just a second. 7.
For 7 consecutive years, from 1997 all the way to 2004, the famous Car and Driver magazine reported that absolutely no production car in the entire world could beat the MK4 Supra's braking distance. The brakes weren't just good, they were a total marvel of engineering that dominated the global industry for nearly a decade.
Section 5. The Beating Heart, 2JZ. But look, as amazing as those brakes were, they are not what made the MK4 famous. We have got to talk about the absolute monster living under the hood. Enter the 2JZ. If you know literally anything about car culture, you've heard this name. It was a notoriously indestructible inline-six engine. The secret sauce? Toyota essentially massively over-engineered it straight from the factory. It was a bulletproof canvas. Tuners figured out real quick that with just a few minor part swaps and cranking up the turbo, this engine would survive unbelievable levels of abuse without even breaking a sweat.
Just wrap your head around this scale of power for a minute. Your standard 90s sports car is way down at the bottom. Moving up to the middle, you have Formula One legend Ayrton Senna's actual race car from that era, putting out roughly 710 horsepower. And then, at the very top, you had tuners pulling 800 to 900 and sometimes well over 1,000 horsepower out of a street-legal Toyota. They were literally taking a commuter brand's engine and making it vastly more powerful than a bespoke Formula One race car. Insane, right?
When you put that whole package together, it's just staggering. You combine that F1-beating tunable 2JZ engine with upgraded turbos, a rock-solid 6-speed gearbox, and super-sharp agile steering that tackled corners beautifully. And yet, unlike a lot of really harsh sports cars out there, it still offered a surprisingly comfortable ride. You didn't just have a car. Backed by that famous Toyota reliability, you basically had a daily drivable rocket ship.
Section 6. The Eternal Legacy.
But despite all this mechanical brilliance, the story takes a massive, almost tragic twist. The ultimate irony of the MK4 Supra is that when it was brand new, consumers just wouldn't buy it. It was probably too unique, or honestly, just too far ahead of its time. Because of tanking sales, Toyota was forced to pull it from the US market by 1998, and by 2002, they shut down global production entirely. It really seemed like the absolute end of the road. But the Supra was saved by the streets. It was the underground car enthusiasts, the tuners, the everyday mechanics who flat out refused to let it die. They started scooping up these cars secondhand. They modified them, pushed that 2JZ engine to its absolute limits, and built them into the legendary machines we know today. It was car culture itself that elevated the MK4 from a canceled production car to total mythical status.
Which leads us to a pretty mind-blown conclusion today. When the MK4 Supra was brand spanking new, sitting right there on the showroom floor, it cost around $40,000.
Today, because of its massive pop culture legacy, starring in blockbuster movies, and that absolutely peerless 2JZ engineering, a clean, 20-year-old MK4 will easily sell for 6 figures on the used market. Easily. It's literally one of the most highly coveted secondhand cars on the planet right now.
Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Do you have a hidden automotive goldmine sitting in your garage right now, completely unaware of its true value? The Supra's incredible journey from an everyday Toyota to a 6-figure legend is pure proof that sometimes true greatness just takes a little time to be recognized. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really want to hear from you. Drop a comment, let me know what legendary car should we explain next. See you in the next one.